The Great Hall of Nexus Prime stretched higher than any building on Earth. Crystal walls caught starlight from 3 different suns and threw rainbow patterns across the floor. Representatives from dozens of alien species sat in perfect circles around the central stage. Their technology hummed softly in the background, translating every word into hundreds of different languages. Lee Minjun stood at the human podium, his hands steady despite the anger burning in his chest. Around him, the most powerful beings in the galaxy prepared to cast judgment on his entire species. The young diplomat had spent 5 years learning their customs, their laws, their ways of thinking. He had believed that understanding would lead to acceptance. He was wrong. The council will now hear final statements before the vote, announced the Valian speaker. Her crystalline form sparkled as she moved, each facet of her body catching light like a living diamond. The Valians were known for their perfect logic, their complete lack of emotion in decision-making. They had ruled the galactic core worlds for over 1,000 years. Zefkar rose from the Valian section. His massive frame towered over the other delegates as he activated his voice projector. Honored members of the council, Mylan Indivai, Sempli Inti5, Vilan Endivai, and Devilan Indivive, he began, his tone carrying the weight of absolute certainty. The evidence against the human species is overwhelming. They have failed to achieve planetary unity after thousands of years of existence. Their history shows constant warfare, environmental destruction, and the systematic oppression of their own kind. Lee's jaw tightened as holographic displays showed Earth's darkest moments. Wars from across human history played out in the air above them. Cities burning, forests dying, oceans poisoned by industrial waste. The images were real, and they hurt to watch. Furthermore, Zefkar continued, their technological development remains primitive. While other species achieved faster-than-light travel through scientific advancement and peaceful cooperation, humans barely managed to reach their own moon using chemical rockets. They show no signs of the emotional or intellectual evolution required for galactic citizenship. The Threen ambassador raised one of her 6 arms in agreement. Her biomechanical form shifted and flowed as she spoke, part machine and part living tissue. The Threen Collective concurs with this assessment. Our deep scans of human neural patterns show excessive emotional responses that interfere with logical decision-making. Their biological systems remain unchanged from their primitive ancestors. They lack the mental discipline required for advanced civilization. More displays showed human brain scans compared to other species. The aliens had studied every aspect of human physiology during first contact, looking for signs of evolutionary advancement. They found none of the genetic modifications, cybernetic enhancements, or consciousness expansions that marked other spacefaring races. Even the normally peaceful Keth Mori voted against humanity. Their flowing, ethereal forms seemed to drift rather than walk as their speaker approached the center. We sense great potential in the human spirit, she said, her voice like wind through trees. But potential without realization is merely disappointment waiting to happen. Their emotional energies are chaotic, uncontrolled. Until they learn to harmonize their inner nature, they pose a danger to galactic peace. Lee listened as species after species condemned his people. The Arctans cited human aggression. The Mollusk Confederacy worried about resource competition. The Silicon Mines calculated that humans had a 97% probability of causing interstellar conflict within 50 years. When they finished speaking, the hall fell silent. Lee stepped forward, knowing this would be humanity's last chance to defend itself. He looked out at hundreds of alien faces, some familiar after years of diplomatic contact, others completely strange. All of them had already made their decision. Honored delegates, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. You judge us by our past. But every species in this hall once struggled with the same challenges. The Valians fought 3 civil wars before achieving unity. The Threen nearly destroyed their homeworld with biological weapons. The Kethmori went through centuries of spiritual darkness before finding enlightenment. A few aliens shifted uncomfortably, but none changed their expressions. You say we lack advanced technology, but we built interstellar ships in less than a century after first flight. You say we cannot unite, but we formed a global government specifically to join this council. You say we are too emotional, but our emotions drive us to protect those we love, to fight for justice, to never surrender when something matters. Lee paused, looking directly at Zefkar. You fear what you do not understand. You see chaos where we see passion. You see primitiveness where we see potential. But your fear does not make us wrong. It makes you limited. The Valian's crystalline form flickered with what might have been anger. The human delegate proves our point with his emotional outburst. Logic, not passion, guides civilized species. Then perhaps, Lee said quietly, civilization means something different to us. The vote came quickly after that. Species after species cast their decision into the central crystal that would tabulate results. Blue lights for acceptance, red for rejection. The crystal filled with red until it looked like a sphere of blood floating in the air. The final count was unanimous. 47 species voted to expel humanity from galactic civilization. 0 voted in favor. The humans were ordered to withdraw all colonies, research stations, and diplomatic missions within 1 standard year. After that, any human presence beyond the Sol system would be considered an act of aggression. Lee stood silently as the judgment was read. Around him, alien delegates began filing out, already discussing other business. To them, humanity was finished, a failed experiment in uplifting a primitive species. Honored speaker, Lee said as the hall emptied. Zefkar paused at the Valian exit, turning to face the human diplomat. We will leave as you have ordered, Lee continued. We will withdraw to our single world and trouble you no more. But remember this day, Zefkar of the Valians. Remember that you had the chance to welcome us, and you chose fear instead. The alien's form shimmered. Your threats mean nothing, human. We have forgotten failed species before, and we will forget yours. Lee smiled then, the expression sad but somehow determined. We are not making threats. We are making a promise. Humanity will remember this day. And perhaps, someday, we will give you reason to remember it too. The young diplomat walked out of the great hall alone, his footsteps echoing off crystal walls. Behind him, the business of galactic civilization continued, as if humanity had never existed at all. But as Lee boarded the last human ship to leave Nexus Prime, he carried with him something the aliens had not expected. Not anger, though that burned bright. Not hatred, though that would be justified. Instead, he carried determination. They wanted humanity to disappear. Perhaps it was time to grant that wish. 25 years had passed since the Great Exile. Though the galaxy had long forgotten about humanity, they assumed the primitive species had either destroyed itself or retreated into permanent isolation. None of their deep space sensors detected any human activity beyond the Sol system. As far as galactic civilization was concerned, Earth had become a dead end. They could not have been more wrong. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching Earth turn slowly below her. The planet looked different now than it had during humanity's first contact with alien species. The night side no longer blazed with the chaotic lights of individual nations. Instead, soft, blue networks connected cities in perfect harmony. The dayside showed vast green spaces where deserts used to be, and clear blue oceans where pollution once choked marine life. Hard to believe it's only been 25 years, said Admiral Lee Minjun as he joined her at the massive windows. The former diplomat had aged gracefully, his black hair now streaked with silver, but his eyes still burned with the same determination that had carried humanity through its darkest hour. The best kind of change happens quickly once everyone agrees on the goal, Sarah replied. She had been just a graduate student when the exile began. Now she led the largest scientific organization in human history, the Terran Research Collective. Fear has a way of focusing the mind. Below them, Earth represented something no alien species would recognize as human civilization. The exile had done more than unite humanity. It had transformed them entirely. Within 5 years of leaving galactic space, every nation on Earth had voluntarily dissolved itself. Not through conquest or force, but through a simple realization that survival required absolute cooperation. The last war in human history had ended 6 months after the exile. It was a border conflict in Southeast Asia that simply stopped when both sides realized they were fighting over resources while the galaxy considered their entire species a failure. The soldiers laid down their weapons and went home to help build something better. "Status report on the fleet construction?" Lee asked, though he already knew the answer. As Supreme Admiral of the Terran Imperial Navy, he received updates every hour. "Mars shipyard completed the final squadron yesterday," Sarah said. 2,000 vessels of various classes, all equipped with quantum displacement drives. The asteroid belt facilities finished the last of the manufacturing ships last week, and Jupiter's moons are producing the specialized equipment faster than we can install it. Lee nodded, remembering the day they had decided to build this fleet. Not for conquest, but for protection. The galaxy had made its opinion of humanity clear, and humans had learned to listen. The Terran Empire was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was not built on the dominance of one group over another, but on the voluntary merger of every human government, corporation, and organization on Earth. When faced with extinction, humanity had chosen unity. But this was not the simple unity of surrender. It was the complex unity of a species that had finally learned to combine its greatest strengths. Every human culture contributed what it did best. Japanese precision merged with German engineering. African wisdom traditions guided environmental restoration. South American passion energized the arts and sciences. Nordic cooperation models became the foundation of government. "The stealth network is holding perfectly," Sarah continued. "Even our most advanced sensors cannot detect the installations unless they know exactly where to look. As far as the galaxy knows, Sol System contains only Earth, a few primitive research stations, and some basic mining operations." The truth was far different. Mars had become the largest shipyard in known space, its construction hidden by holographic projectors that made the planet appear unchanged. The asteroid belt housed automated manufacturing complexes that could produce any technology humanity needed. Jupiter's moons contained research facilities where human scientists worked on problems that would challenge entire alien civilizations. All of this remained invisible to outside observation through advances in stealth technology that made their ships undetectable to any known sensors. The galaxy thought humanity had retreated to a single world. In reality, they had claimed an entire solar system and transformed it into something that surpassed any alien achievement. "Dr. Chen," came a voice through the station's communication system. "The Council is ready for your presentation." Sarah and Lee made their way to the conference room where the Terran Imperial Council was meeting. Unlike the alien governing bodies they had once tried to join, this council had no permanent members and no single leader. Representatives rotated based on expertise and need, with decisions made through consensus rather than voting. The room filled as delegates connected from across the solar system. Some attended in person from Luna Station. Others appeared as holograms from Mars, the asteroid belt, or the outer planets. Every major human population center was represented, but so was every field of human knowledge. "We have reached the decision point," announced Dr. Kim Sato, the current council coordinator. Her role was to facilitate discussion, not to lead it. Do we maintain isolation, or do we reveal ourselves to the galaxy? The debate that followed had been building for months. Humanity had achieved everything they set out to do after the exile. Earth was a paradise world, with clean air, pure water, and abundant resources for all. Human technology had advanced beyond anything the galaxy possessed. They had built a civilization based on cooperation instead of competition. Some argued for maintaining the status quo. "We have proven ourselves," said Dr. James Okafor, representing the African Continental Research Network. "Why risk contact with species that rejected us once already?" "Because isolation was never the goal," Lee replied. "We withdrew to grow stronger, not to hide forever. We have learned things the galaxy needs to know. We have developed technologies that could help billions of beings live better lives. The medical advances alone could save countless lives," Sarah added. "Our biological adaptation techniques, our environmental restoration methods, our resource distribution systems, these could transform galactic civilization." Dr. Maria Santos from the South American Cooperative raised a concern that had troubled many council members. "What if they see our advancement as a threat? What if they unite against us this time?" Lee's expression grew serious. "Then we will deal with that challenge the same way we have dealt with every other challenge since the exile. Together." Lee's expression. Together. The discussion continued for hours, with perspectives from every region of human space. Arctic research stations reported on psychological studies of isolation versus engagement. Australian ecological institutes provided data on the benefits of diversity in complex systems. European philosophical centers offered ethical frameworks for interspecies contact. Finally, the moment came for consensus. One by one, every delegate indicated their position. Not through voting, but through the kind of deep discussion that allowed everyone to understand every perspective until a natural agreement emerged. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would end its exile, but not by asking for readmission to galactic society. They would offer something instead. They would share what they had learned about cooperation, about unity, about transforming weakness into strength. "We will wait for the right moment," Lee said, as the meeting concluded. "When the galaxy faces a challenge that requires our approach to solve. When they need what we have become." "And if that moment never comes?" asked Dr. Santos. Sarah smiled, looking out at the star field beyond the station windows. "Then we will create it. Humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our intelligence. It was our refusal to accept that things cannot change." As the council dispersed, the Terran Empire continued its patient work. Ships prepared for eventual contact. Scientists refined technologies that could reshape civilizations. Diplomats studied alien cultures with the benefit of 25 years of observation from the shadows. The galaxy had banished humanity for being too primitive, too emotional, too chaotic. They were about to discover that humanity had used every single one of those traits to become something unprecedented in galactic history. A species that had learned to transform exile into opportunity, fear into determination, and isolation into the foundation for a better future. The plague struck without warning across 17 different star systems. It began on 3 colony worlds, where their advanced biotechnology failed to identify the pathogen. Within weeks, it spread to Valian crystal cities where their perfect logic could not comprehend its behavior. The Keth Mori homeworld fell silent as their mystical healing abilities proved useless against the spreading death. Ambassador Vesas Tai of the Threen Collective stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, her biomechanical form trembling with exhaustion. Dark fluid leaked from her organic components, while her mechanical parts sparked with overloaded circuits. She had not slept in 72 standard hours. "The death toll has reached 47 million beings across all affected species," she reported, her voice heavy with defeat. "Our combined medical knowledge has failed to even identify what we are fighting. The pathogen adapts faster than our treatments. It learns from our attempts to stop it." Zefkar of the Valians rose from his position, his crystalline form dimmed by stress fractures that ran like scars across his surface. 25 years had passed since the human exile, and he had become one of the most senior council members. Logic demands we consider all possibilities. We have exhausted conventional medical approaches. Perhaps we must look beyond conventional solutions. What are you suggesting? Asked the Kethmori speaker, her ethereal form barely visible as she struggled to maintain physical cohesion. The plague had affected her people's ability to exist in physical reality, trapping them in bodies that felt like prisons. I suggest, Zefkar said slowly, that we may need help from sources we previously rejected. The council chamber fell silent. Every delegate understood what he meant, though none wanted to speak the words. In 50 years of galactic civilization, they had never faced a challenge that their combined knowledge could not solve. The idea that they might need outside assistance was almost unthinkable. "The humans are extinct," said the Arctan representative, his scaled hide rippling with nervous patterns. "Our sensors have detected no activity from their system in decades." "Our sensors," Zefkar replied, "detect only what we expect to find." On Earth, the Terran Imperial Council was already in emergency session. They had been monitoring galactic communications since the exile began, and the plague's rapid spread had triggered every alert system in human space. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the holographic displays showing the affected worlds, her team of scientists working frantically behind her. "We can help them," she announced to the assembled delegates. "The pathogen follows behavioral patterns similar to Earth viruses from our early evolutionary period. Our biological adaptation techniques can modify affected organisms to coexist with it rather than fight it." Admiral Lee Minjun studied the tactical displays showing galactic fleet movements. Entire star systems were under quarantine, but the plague continued to spread. "The question is whether we should help them." They made their opinion of humanity very clear. "That was 25 years ago," said Dr. Kim Sato, the current council coordinator. "Circumstances have changed. We have changed. And if they reject our help?" asked Dr. Maria Santos. "If they see our offer as an opportunity to attack us when they are weak? Then we will deal with that when it happens," Lee replied. "But right now, millions of beings are dying from something we can cure. The question is not whether they deserve our help. The question is whether we are the kind of species that helps others in need." The debate was shorter than usual for such a momentous decision. The Terran Empire had been built on principles of cooperation and mutual aid. Those principles could not apply only to humans, if they were to mean anything at all. Ambassador Kara Singh prepared for her mission aboard the most advanced ship in the human fleet. The vessel looked like nothing in galactic space, its hull seeming to shift and flow like living tissue while containing technology that surpassed anything the aliens had imagined. "Are you ready for this?" Lee asked, as Singh made final preparations. "You are about to shock the galaxy back to consciousness." Singh smiled, checking the data tablets containing humanity's medical research. "I have been practicing first contact protocols for 25 years. I think I can handle a few surprised aliens." The transmission went out on all galactic emergency frequencies simultaneously. Singh's image appeared on screens across dozens of worlds, her calm presence a stark contrast to the panic that had gripped galactic civilization. "Attention, Galactic Council and member species. I am Ambassador Kara Singh of the Terran Empire. We have monitored your medical crisis and believe we can provide assistance. We are transmitting the coordinates of Nexus Prime for immediate contact." The reaction was instantaneous. On the Threne homeworld, Vestai nearly collapsed as her biomechanical systems overloaded with shock. In the crystal cities of Vialios, Zefkar's perfect composure cracked as he struggled to process the impossible. Across the galaxy, beings who had assumed humanity extinct watched a human face speak with calm authority about helping them survive. Singh's ship materialized in Nexus Prime's orbital space without any detectable approach. One moment the sensors showed empty space. The next moment, A vessel unlike anything in galactic records hung motionless above the planet. It had appeared instantly, without any FTL signature, without any trace of the quantum distortions that marked conventional faster-than-light travel. The ship itself defied classification. It appeared to be grown rather than built, its surface shifting between organic curves and geometric precision. Hull plates seemed to breathe, while weapon systems that clearly existed remained completely invisible to any scan. Sing's transport shuttle was equally impossible. As it descended to the planet's surface, environmental sensors detected that it was adapting its internal atmosphere in real time to match whatever life support requirements its passenger needed. The landing itself was silent, the craft touching down with no visible propulsion system. When Sing emerged, she wore no environmental suit, despite Nexus Prime's atmospheric mix that was toxic to unmodified humans. Her ship had already altered its interior to provide perfect life support for her physiology, and she carried portable systems that continued the adaptation. The assembled alien representatives stared in stunned silence as Sing walked toward them with confident steps. She looked exactly as humans had 25 years ago, but everything about her presence suggested capabilities far beyond what they remembered. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying clearly through translation systems that her equipment had automatically optimized for perfect understanding. "The Terran Empire offers medical assistance for the plague affecting your worlds. Our research indicates that the pathogen can be neutralized through biological adaptation techniques." Zefkar found his voice first, though his crystalline form continued to flicker with stress patterns. "The humans were declared extinct. Our sensors detected no activity from your system. Your sensors," Sing replied with a slight smile, "detect only what we choose to reveal. We have been present, observing, learning, growing. The exile you imposed upon us became the foundation for our advancement." Dr. Chen's medical team materialized on Nexus Prime using the same quantum displacement technology that had brought Sing's ship. They immediately began demonstrating treatment techniques that shocked alien medical professionals. Instead of fighting the plague, human medicine worked with it, teaching affected organisms to adapt rather than resist. "This is impossible," whispered Vestai, as she watched human doctors cure patients that Threen biotechnology had declared beyond hope. "Your techniques modify the patient's biology in real time. We do not have technology that can do this." "You do not have our approach to technology, Doctor," Chen explained gently. "We learned to work with biological systems rather than against them, to adapt rather than dominate, to cooperate rather than control." As word of humanity's return spread across the galaxy, the response varied dramatically. Some species reacted with fear, wondering what other capabilities the supposedly extinct humans had developed. Others felt hope for the first time since the plague began. A few, led by species that had voted for humanity's exile, felt something they had never experienced before: shame. Sing addressed the Galactic Council's emergency session with the same calm authority she had shown throughout the crisis. "We ask for nothing in return for our assistance. We seek no readmission to galactic society. We have built our own civilization and require nothing you can offer." "Then why help us?" asked the Keth Mori speaker, her form more solid now that human treatments had restored her people's connection to physical reality. "Because," Sing replied, "helping others when they need it is what civilized beings do." The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after humanity's return to galactic awareness, the plague had been completely eliminated. Every affected world now thrived with populations healthier than they had been before the crisis began. But the cure had created a different kind of disruption that nobody had anticipated. The galaxy could not understand what the Terran Empire represented. Ambassador Singh walked through the halls of the first Terran embassy on Nexus Prime in 50 years. The building itself had become a source of fascination and confusion for alien visitors. Unlike other diplomatic facilities that maintained the architectural standards of their home species, the human embassy adapted itself in real time. When Valian delegates entered, the walls shifted to crystalline surfaces that caught and refracted light in mathematically perfect patterns. Threen visitors found biomechanical curves that pulsed with organic rhythms. Keth Mori guests discovered flowing spaces that seemed to breathe with mystical energy. The building read each visitor's physiological and psychological needs, then transformed itself to make them completely comfortable. "This is disturbing," admitted Zefkar, as he met with Singh in a conference room that had become a perfect replica of Valian architectural ideals. "Your technology anticipates our needs before we express them." "Our technology," Singh corrected gently, "considers your needs, because we designed it to care about the comfort of others." "Is that really so disturbing?" The Valian Council leader's crystalline form flickered with patterns that indicated deep thought. In the months since humanity's return, he had been forced to question many assumptions that had guided his species for millennia. "It suggests a fundamental difference in how you approach existence. We build to demonstrate our achievements. You build to serve others." This difference had become apparent in every aspect of human-alien interaction. The Terran Empire's post-scarcity economy baffled trade specialists across the galaxy. Humans freely shared medical technology, offered environmental restoration services, and provided advanced materials without demanding traditional resources in return. They seemed to treat the galaxy as a library rather than a marketplace. Dr. Sarah Chen had established research exchanges with alien scientists, but these partnerships followed human rather than galactic rules. Instead of protecting their technological secrets, humans shared everything openly. Instead of competing for discoveries, they collaborated on solutions that benefited everyone. "Your approach to knowledge violates every principle of intellectual advancement," complained Dr. Mexal, the chief researcher for the Threen Collective. "How can you advance if you give away your discoveries?" "How can we advance if we do not?" Chen replied, during their joint research session. "Every mind that understands our work becomes capable of improving it. Every species that adopts our methods becomes able to contribute new perspectives. Knowledge grows when it is shared, not when it is hoarded." This philosophy had already begun transforming galactic civilization. Species that had competed for resources for thousands of years found themselves cooperating on projects that none could complete alone. The rigid hierarchies that had defined galactic politics started to soften as beings discovered that collaboration produced better results than domination. But not everyone welcomed these changes. The Confederation of Steel Worlds, an alliance of militaristic species that had profited from galactic conflicts, saw humanity's influence as a direct threat to their power structure. When human supply convoys began delivering aid to recently cured worlds, Steel Confederation fleets moved to intercept them. Admiral Lee Minjun watched the developing situation from the command center of the Terra Nova, humanity's most advanced warship. The vessel was invisible to enemy sensors, positioned exactly where it needed to be to observe the coming confrontation. 3 Steel Confederation battle groups converging on our medical supply convoy, reported Captain Park Heijin from the tactical station. "They appear to be planning a coordinated attack to capture our ships and technology." "Countermeasures?" Lee asked, though he already knew what his officers would recommend. "Standard engagement protocols suggest overwhelming force," replied Commander Jackson Smith from the weapons station. "We could disable all 3 battle groups simultaneously, using quantum disruptors." "No," Lee said firmly. "These beings are acting out of fear and misunderstanding, not genuine evil. We will respond proportionally." The Steel Confederation attack came precisely as human intelligence had predicted. Warships that had dominated galactic conflicts for centuries unleashed their most powerful weapons against the human convoy, expecting easy victory against what they assumed were lightly defended cargo vessels. What happened next would be discussed in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The human ships did not fight back in any conventional sense. Instead, they seemed to understand each attacking vessel perfectly. Weapons that had never failed before suddenly malfunctioned in ways that prevented firing but caused no permanent damage. Engines shut down through technical problems that could be easily repaired. Communication systems began broadcasting the attacker's own military frequencies back to them, creating confusion without causing harm. Within minutes, the entire Steel Confederation fleet found itself completely disabled. Not destroyed, not damaged beyond repair, but simply unable to continue fighting. Their weapons would not fire, their engines would not start. Their systems responded to commands in ways that made combat impossible. "This is Admiral Keth Var of the Steel Confederation," came the transmission from the lead battleship. "What have you done to our fleet?" Lee's response went out on all frequencies, so every government in the galaxy could hear it. "We have demonstrated that violence is not the most effective solution to problems. Your ships are undamaged. Your crews are unharmed. When you are ready to discuss your concerns through peaceful means, we will be happy to restore your systems and continue this conversation." End quote. The response from galactic civilization was immediate and profound. Military strategists realized that humanity possessed defensive capabilities that made traditional warfare obsolete. But more importantly, they had chosen to use those capabilities to protect rather than destroy their attackers. Zefkar initiated the first formal request for policy guidance from the Terran Empire later that same week. The Valian Collective wanted to understand human approaches to governance, resource distribution, and conflict resolution. They were not asking for technology or military support. They were asking to learn a different way of thinking. "We have achieved perfect logical systems," Zefkar explained during his meeting with Singh. "But logic without wisdom produces sterile perfection. We calculate the most efficient solutions but ignore whether those solutions create happiness or fulfill the needs of our people." Similar requests came from species across the galaxy. The Threen wanted to understand how humans balanced individual achievement with collective welfare. The Keth Mori sought to learn about emotional intelligence and its role in decision-making. Even some Steel Confederation worlds quietly asked for guidance on building economies that did not depend on conflict. Dr. Chen announced the establishment of the first galactic university on Earth, where alien students could study human approaches to cooperation, adaptation, and problem-solving. The curriculum included courses that did not exist anywhere else in galactic civilization: cooperation theory, adaptive leadership, emotional intelligence, and what humans called systems thinking, the ability to see how individual actions affected the larger whole. The first graduation ceremony included students from 23 different species who had learned to solve problems by combining different perspectives rather than proving individual superiority. Their thesis projects addressed challenges that had puzzled galactic civilization for centuries, using techniques that seemed simple once explained, but had never been attempted before. "The most remarkable thing," observed Dr. Yelnan, a Threen student who had learned to integrate organic and mechanical approaches to biotechnology, "is that human methods work better when applied by non-humans. Your techniques become more powerful when different species use them together." This discovery led to the formation of the first interspecies research cooperatives in galactic history. Projects that had stalled for decades because no single species possessed all necessary knowledge suddenly advanced rapidly when different kinds of minds worked together. The economic implications were staggering. Resource conflicts that had driven galactic politics for millennia became obsolete when species learned to share knowledge and capabilities. Wars became unnecessary when beings discovered that cooperation produced better results than conquest. But the most profound change was psychological. For the first time in galactic history, species began to see other beings not as competitors or threats, but as potential partners in solving challenges that affected everyone. Singh concluded her monthly report to the Terran Council with observations that would have seemed impossible 6 months earlier. "The galaxy is changing faster than we anticipated. Not through force or economic pressure, but through the simple demonstration that cooperation works better than competition. We have given them tools, but more importantly, We have given them hope. The transformation was far from complete, and resistance remained strong among species that had built their entire civilizations on principles of dominance and control. But something fundamental had shifted in galactic consciousness. The exiled humans had returned not as conquerors, but as teachers, and the galaxy was finally ready to learn. 1 year after humanity's return, Ambassador Singh stood before the largest gathering in galactic history. Representatives from over 300 species filled the great assembly hall of Nexus Prime, more than had ever met in one place before. They had come to witness the formal establishment of something unprecedented: the Cooperative Galactic Initiative. Unlike the old Galactic Council where power determined influence, the CGI operated on principles that would have been impossible before humanity's return. Every voice mattered, regardless of military strength or technological advancement. Every perspective had value regardless of species origin. Problems were solved through synthesis rather than dominance. Today we begin something new, Singh announced to the assembled delegates. Not a government or empire, but a voluntary association where species contribute their unique strengths to common challenges, where diversity becomes our greatest advantage rather than our greatest source of conflict. The transformation had not been easy. Many species struggled to abandon competition-based thinking that had guided their civilizations for thousands of years. But the results spoke for themselves. Problems that had seemed impossible when each species worked alone became manageable when different kinds of minds collaborated. Dr. Sarah Chen watched from the human delegation as Zefkar of the Valians rose to address the assembly. The crystalline being who had once led humanity's exile had become one of their strongest advocates, though the path to that position had been painful. I stand before you today to acknowledge a fundamental error in judgment, Zefkar began, his form flickering with patterns that indicated deep emotion. 26 years ago, I led the vote to exile humanity from galactic civilization. I convinced this council that logical perfection was the highest achievement, that emotional responses were signs of primitiveness, that competition would drive us to greater heights. The hall fell silent as the senior Valian continued. I was wrong about everything that mattered. Logic without wisdom produces sterile perfection. Competition without cooperation leads to isolation. Power without compassion creates emptiness. He turned to face the human delegation directly. To Ambassador Singh and the people of Earth, I formally apologize for the harm my species inflicted through ignorance. To the galaxy, I offer a lesson learned through humility. Sometimes, being cast out teaches the outcast what those who remain need to learn. The formal apology was more than symbolic. The Valian Collective had restructured its entire government to incorporate emotional considerations into logical frameworks. Their crystal cities now included spaces designed for contemplation and beauty rather than pure efficiency. Their scientific method had expanded to consider the psychological and social impacts of discoveries, not just their technical merit. Similar transformations were occurring throughout galactic civilization. The Threen Collective had modified their biomechanical integration processes to preserve individual personality rather than optimize for mechanical efficiency. The Keth Mori had emerged from their traditional isolation to share their mystical insights with species that had previously dismissed them as impractical dreamers. But the most dramatic change was visible in the younger generation. Alien children, who had grown up during the year of human influence, showed fundamentally different thinking patterns from their elders. They cooperated instinctively, shared resources naturally, and approached problems by seeking to understand rather than dominate. Dr. Min Park, a child psychologist from Seoul, had established exchange programs where young beings from different species learned together. The children adapt to human educational methods faster than their parents adapt to human diplomatic methods, she reported. They seem to understand intuitively that diversity makes groups stronger rather than weaker. These educational exchanges had produced the first generation of truly galactic citizens, young Valians, who understood emotion as a form of logic. Three children who valued organic creativity alongside mechanical precision. Kethmori youth, who could explain their mystical insights in terms that other species could apply practically. Admiral Lee Minjun had overseen the most visible symbol of galactic transformation, the integration of the Imperial fleet with defense forces from dozens of species. What had begun as humanity's hidden navy had become a cooperative armada, where different species contributed their unique capabilities to shared goals. The Arctan defensive matrices complement Threen biomechanical systems, reported Captain Park from the command deck of the Terra Nova. Kethmori mystical detection methods enhance Valian logical analysis networks. Every species makes every other species more effective. This principle had been tested during the Kivari invasion 6 months earlier. The silicon-based aggressors from outside known space had attacked with overwhelming force, expecting to find the divided, competitive civilizations that had dominated the galaxy for millennia. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented: a unified defense, where hundreds of species coordinated their efforts seamlessly. Valian logic guided overall strategy, while Threen biotechnology adapted to enemy weapons in real time. Kethmori mystical abilities detected hidden threats, while human adaptive tactics turned every enemy strength into a weakness. The Kivari fleet was not destroyed but neutralized, its weapons disabled and its ships captured intact. Following human protocols, the defeated enemies were offered a choice: return to their home space with a warning never to return, or remain to learn about the cooperative civilization they had tried to conquer. Surprisingly, nearly half chose to stay. The Kivari who remained discovered that joining galactic civilization meant gaining access to technologies, resources, and knowledge that made conquest unnecessary. They became some of the most enthusiastic advocates for the cooperative approach, having seen firsthand how it could transform even aggressive species. Singh concluded her address to the CGI assembly by revealing humanity's greatest secret: the truth that even their closest alien allies had never suspected. Members of the Cooperative Galactic Initiative, she said, there is something you must understand about humanity's true purpose. Our exile was not just about building a hidden empire or proving our worth to the galaxy. It was about preparing to unite with the galaxy itself. The hall stirred as delegates realized they were about to hear something unprecedented. Every human advance was designed not to surpass other species but to help them transcend their limitations. Our medical technology helps other beings adapt and evolve. Our resource systems ensure everyone has enough to thrive. Our educational methods teach cooperation without eliminating the diversity that makes cooperation valuable. Singh paused, looking out at hundreds of alien faces that represented the most diverse gathering in galactic history. The Terran Empire's true purpose was never isolation, but integration. We withdrew to become worthy partners in a galactic civilization that values cooperation over conquest, wisdom over power, synthesis over domination. We became something new so that together, we could all become something better. Dr. Chen stood to deliver the final revelation: data that would reshape galactic understanding of development and potential. Our research over the past year has confirmed something remarkable, she announced. Every species in this hall possesses capabilities that complement every other species. When we work together, we do not just add our individual strengths, we multiply them. The data displays showed collaboration results that astounded even human scientists. Joint Valian Kethmori research projects that advanced both logic and mysticism simultaneously. Threen human biotechnology that enhanced organic capabilities without sacrificing mechanical precision. Multi-species engineering projects that produced technologies none could have achieved alone. We stand at the beginning of true galactic civilization, Chen continued. Not one based on the dominance of any single species or ideology, but one that recognizes diversity as the foundation of strength. The formal establishment of the CGI was unanimous. But more importantly, it was enthusiastic. Species that had competed for resources for millennia committed to sharing knowledge and capabilities. Governments that had built their entire identities around military superiority agreed to cooperative defense arrangements. Scientists who had guarded their discoveries began planning joint research initiatives. As the assembly concluded, Singh made her way to the observation deck where Lee waited, watching ships from hundreds of different species preparing to return to their home worlds. But they were no longer traveling as isolated civilizations. They were connected by communication networks, resource-sharing agreements, and cultural exchange programs that would keep them in constant contact. Hard to believe it started with an exile, Lee commented, watching a Valian crystal ship traveling in formation with a Threen biomechanical vessel and a Keth Mori ethereal craft. The exile was not the beginning, Singh replied thoughtfully. It was the catalyst. Humanity always had the potential for this kind of cooperation. We just needed motivation to develop it. And now? Singh smiled as she watched humanity's gift to the galaxy unfold before them. Ships that had once been weapons of war now carried supplies and knowledge between worlds. Species that had once feared each other now shared their greatest discoveries freely. Children from a dozen different civilizations played together in the station's common areas, creating games that no single species could have imagined. Now we find out what galactic civilization can become when it stops trying to prove which species is best and starts discovering what we can accomplish together. 50 years in the future, historians would look back on this moment as the true beginning of galactic civilization. Not the first time species met in space, but the first time they learned to see diversity as strength rather than threat. Humanity had been banished for being too human, too emotional, too chaotic, too unpredictable. They returned to teach the galaxy that being human meant helping others become the best versions of themselves. And nothing was ever the same again.